and welcome back to Project 380. In this video I'm going to be installing the Wilwood front big brake conversion. Really and truthfully, the brakes are the first thing you need to upgrade. If you're thinking of adding any power to the car, whether it be 10 horsepower or 250 horsepower, you really want to be upgrading the brakes. Power is pointless without the ability to stop. Bigger brakes not only give you more stopping power, but what they actually do is dissipate the heat quicker. This is going to help with things such as the life of the pads and the discs, and it's going to help raise the point at where you get brake fade. So first things first, these rusty old brakes need to come off. First thing I'm going to do is remove the old brake line. As you can see, I've already got a stainless steel braided one. This isn't going to be used anymore as it's got a different fit in this end for the bigger brakes. To do this, you're going to need a brake pipe spanner. If you've got the standard pipes, it's going to be a 10mm, but if you have already changed yours, it's going to be an 11mm. Once you've pulled the pipe out, we can then remove the retaining clip, which keeps the flexi pipe in the chassis. And then you can remove the flexi pipe from the chassis. With the brake line removed from the chassis, I can now take the whole brake assembly off. So instead of taking the caliper off the carrier, I'm going to leave it all in one and just undo the carrier bolts from the back of the hub. There are no retaining screws on the disc from standard, so once the brake caliper assembly is out of the way, the discs can just be lifted off. With those rusty old things out of the way, it's now time for the big brake conversion. As you may have seen in a previous video, I have gone for the Wilwood Dynalite 4-piston calipers. Having 4 pistons, it is going to give me extra clamping force, and being a Wilwood caliper, it's going to give me easy serviceability, but I'll come on to that into a little while. So to go with these are some great big 280mm discs. Bigger and slightly thicker than the standard 1.8 brake discs, and some PBS Pro Race brake pads. This is actually a whole big brake conversion kit that I've purchased off of Freaky Parts. I'll leave a link down in the description below, but there are a few reasons why I have ordered this kit from Freaky Parts. So the first being, this actually comes as a complete bolt-on kit, which include the caliper, the disc, the pads, the adapter block to fit the Wilwoods onto the standard hubs, the spigot ring to allow the new disc to sit nicely on the hub, all the fitting kit, and a nice new stainless steel braided hose. And secondly was the customer service. I approached Freaky Parts and gave them a list of my needs and requirements, and they were more than helpful. To begin with, I asked them what sort of brake pads I should go for, as there's a few different options with this kit. They advised me to go for the PBS Pro Race pads, as I'm going to be using the car for all sorts: drifting, racing, track days, and on the road. And they advised me these would be perfect for my requirements. And at the time I was aware that the flexi brake pipe actually had a different fitting on the caliper end. The Wilwood caliper actually screws in the side without a banjo bolt. Now that wouldn't have been a problem, but because I have got the full destroy or die front angle kit, I am obviously running a lot more angle, and I was quite worried that the brake line was going to stretch. With a quick conversation with Freaky Parts, they actually told me that they make these particular hoses in-house, and they didn't batter an eyelid at making me a slightly longer one. With all that said and done, let's have a look at the standard brake kit side by side with the new Wilwood big brake kit. So first off, the brake discs. As you can see, they are a noticeable size difference. That is a fair bit of extra meat. The pads aren't hugely different in size, but what really matters is what's on the other side, as in the compound. The standard pads are made to last a lot longer, but doesn't necessarily mean they perform the best. Whereas the different compound in the PBS Pro Race ones, no, they may not last as long, but they are going to outperform the standard ones by an absolute mile. Last but not least are the brake calipers. As you can see, a noticeable difference in size, but what is most important is the fact that the standard one has only got one piston and the Wilwood has got 4, 2 either side. So the standard caliper works by one piston pushing the brake pads and moving the caliper, applying force to both sides. Whereas the new Wilwood caliper pushes from both sides with 2 pistons per pad, which simply means there is more clamping force on the brakes. These are also aluminium and are really light compared to the cast steel standard ones. Now on to installing them. The first thing you're going to want to install is the adapter bracket to allow the Wilwood calipers to fit on the MX5. And this is where I came into a little bit of an issue. In the kit there are 8 bolts provided, 4 short and 4 long, and it's the longer of the 4 bolts that attach the bracket to the hub. Because I am using the full destroy or die kit, I think the hub is slightly thinner and I had to cut down the longer bolts. I'm going to apply a little bit of blue Loctite to the longer bolts and bolt the adapter to the hub. It goes this way round so the cutouts are facing towards the inside of the car. These need to be torqued down to 65 Newton meters. So the longer bolts I've actually cut about 2 threads off, and as you can see they're just poking through. Without cutting these down, they do actually touch the back of the discs. In the kit you'll find a little metal ring. This is actually an adapter spigot that goes on the centre of the hub to allow the fitment of the new brake discs. Before you put the ring onto the hub, it's a good idea to give this a little bit of grease so that spigot ring doesn't seize. And then a little bit of grease on the outside of the spigot ring so the disc doesn't seize to the spigot. I'm just using a bit of high temperature brake grease. Make sure the surface of the hub is nice and clean and free of debris. If there is any debris between the hub and the disc, you can get a slight brake wobble. These brake discs are oil coated to stop them going rusty, so we need to clean that off before we install them. I'm just going to get a bit of brake cleaner and a rag and clean all the oil coating off. These discs actually use some retaining screws that are supplied in the kit. I've just put a very small amount of blue Loctite on these to stop them backing out. These really don't need to be that tight. You could grab the disc with one hand and a ratchet with the other and just give it a good nip. It's almost time to fit the new caliper, but what I'd advise you to do first is fit the flexi hose to it. Because there isn't a banjo bolt fitting to this, you actually have to screw the pipe in, and it gets a bit difficult while it's on the car. Give that a good nip with a brake pipe spanner. You can always tighten this slightly further once it's bolted onto the car. Using the shorter bolts in the kit, you can now install the caliper. These can also be torqued to 65 Newton meters. Be careful when you're swinging the torque wrench that it doesn't collide with the flexi hose. If you feel the need, you can now tighten that flexi hose further. You can then install the flexi into the chassis. Earlier on I was talking about the serviceability of this kit, and that is in regards to the brake pads. With these you don't need to take the calipers off to change the pads, they simply slide in and out. So what I'm going to do is put a little bit of grease on each edge and a little on the face where it touches the pistons. I'm going to pop that into the caliper, move it around a little bit so that grease works in, and do the same with the other. These are simply held in with a big split pin. Pop that through and then open the split pin up. When it's time to change the pads, all you have to do is remove the split pin and take the pads out. Grease up some new ones and pop them in. With the brakes installed, all you need to do now is bleed the system. I can't bleed the fronts right now as I still haven't installed the rear brakes. I will cover this in a future video, but what I will tell you about the Wilwood setup is you need to use the top 2 bleed screws and not the bottom 2. If you open the bottom 2, you will introduce air into the system. The last thing to do is fit the wheel and make sure everything clears the brake caliper. On the Freaky Parts website there is a template you could download and print onto A4 paper, which you could cut out and test fit in your wheel before you buy these brakes. These won't fit in 13 or 14-inch wheels, but they will fit in most 15 and definitely 16 wheels. With the wheel on now, you can really see how big these brakes are. They're almost taking up the whole wheel. And I think the colour of the new calipers go really well with the wheel and the tuner nuts. That is the Wilwood big front brake disc kit from Freaky Parts all installed. Go check out the link below to Freaky Parts website. If this video did help you install your Wilwood kit, leave us a comment down below. Don't forget to leave us a like and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.